While we are highly trained professionals dealing in complex mathematical procedure, we do encourage you to try this at home as it will hopefully enhance your mathematical understanding. So welcome back to One Lesson 3 Math. The learning objective for this video is to be able to add, subtract, multiply and divide fractions. So we've got 4 questions, each with a part A and a part B. If you would like to have a go at the questions, please pause the video now before I proceed with the solutions. So, question 1, part A. Everybody likes a good part A. We've got to work out 4/5 plus 7/8. Now, the thing with adding and subtracting fractions is we need to make the denominator the same. So what we're going to do is we're going to look for the lowest common multiple of the denominator. The denominators are the 5 and the 8 because we've got 4/5 and 7/8. So we've got to find the lowest common multiple of them. Now, the lowest common multiple of 5 and 8 is literally 5 times 8. It's 40. So we need to make both of the denominators 40 and we need to keep the fractions equivalent. So we're going to times the first fraction, top and bottom, by 8. And the second fraction, top and bottom, numerator and denominator, by 5. So that gives us 2 equivalent fractions that we can then add. 4/5 is equivalent to 32 over 40, 32 40ths. And 7/8 is equivalent to 35 over 40. So that's going to allow us to add these fractions together. Remember, we only add the numerator, so we get 67 over 40. Okay, now that's a top-heavy fraction. It's bigger on the topper, so it must be improper. So what we then do is we say how many 40s go into 67 to work out the number of holes. So there's one hole, and we've got a remainder of 27, so we write down the remainder as a fraction of 40, so our answer is 1 whole and 27 40ths. Now part B, we need to work out 2 3/5 plus 3 1/4. Now the thing with these mixed numbers is we need to change them to top-heavy fractions. So, for example, 2 3/5. 2 wholes, because we're dealing in fifths with this fraction, it's 5/5 and 5/5 and then the 3/5. So altogether that's 13/5. 3 1/4 is 3 wholes, but this time we're dealing in quarters. So each whole is 4 quarters, 4 quarters, 4 quarters. That's 12 quarters, plus the 1/4 gives us 13 quarters. So now we need to go into the finding the lowest common multiple of the denominator mode. The lowest common multiple of 5 and 4 is 20. So we're going to put the fractions over 20. Now, the first fraction, top and bottom, we're going to multiply it by 4. The second fraction, top and bottom, we're going to multiply it by 5. 4 times 5 is 20. It makes sense. So now we have 52 20ths plus 65 20ths. So that is going to be 117 20ths. It's bigger on the topper, so it must be improper. We need to change it to a mixed number. How many 20s go into 117? Well, the answer to that is 5. There's 5 wholes. We have a remainder of 17, so we can write that as 17 20ths. Now, we always look to see if we can simplify any fractions, but here, for both of these questions, part A and part B, we can't simplify the fraction because there's no common factors. So for part 2A, we need to work out 4/5 take away 1/8. Now the same thing as adding fractions, we need to find the lowest common multiple of the denominator. So we need to make the denominators the same to add and subtract fractions. So again, lowest common multiple of 5 and 8 is 40. So we're going to times the first fraction, top and bottom, by 8. Second fraction, top and bottom, by 5. So that gives us 32 over 40, take away 5 over 40, which we can then do. We take away the numerators. 32 take away 5 is 27, and our solution is 27 over 40. Can we simplify it? No, because the only common factor is 1. Part B, we need to work out 3 3/7, take away 1 1/2. Now the first fraction, again, we need to change it to a top-heavy fraction. Each of those 3 wholes is going to be 7/7. So 7/7, 7/7, and 7/7 makes 21/7, plus 3/7 gives us 24/7. 1 1/2, if you imagine 1 1/2 pizzas, how many half pizzas would you see? Well, the whole pizza would be 2 halves, and the other half would be 1 half, so that would be 3 halves. So our next line of working out is going to be 24 over 7, and basically you can do 3 times 7 plus the 3 to get the 24, minus 3 over 2, 1 times 2 plus the 1 is 3, 3 over 2, 3 halves. Again, we need to make the denominators the same. The lowest common multiple of 7 and 2 is 14. I'm going to times the first fraction, top and bottom, numerator and denominator, by 2. The second fraction, numerator and denominator, by 7. That keeps them equivalent, so we can now subtract them. 48 take away 21 is 27. The denominator stays the same, so we've got 27 over 14. Now that's top heavy. We say how many 14s go into 27? Well, 2 14s would be 28, so it's only once, so we have 1 whole and a remainder of 13, so it's 13 14ths. Our answer is 1 whole 13 14ths. Now, question 3, we're moving into multiplying fractions. Part A, everybody likes a good part A. We need to work out 4/5 times by 7/10. Now, the important mathematical terminology for multiplying fractions is fniaum. We fniaum across the top and we fniaum across the bottom. And what I mean by that is we multiply across the top and we multiply across the bottom. So 4 times 7 on the top and 5 times 10 on the bottom. So that's going to give us our numerator and our denominator. Fniaum across the top, fniaum across the bottom. So that gives us 28 over 50. 28 over 50 does simplify because we can divide them both by 2. So that gives us 14 over 25. Now working out 3/7 of 42, we're going to do method 1 where we would just divide by the denominator and times by the numerator, which is probably the easiest method, to be honest. That gives us 6 times 3 and that gives us 18. However, you can also remember that of means times. So we could set it up as 3/7 times 42, and 42 is 42 over 1, so we could fniam across the top and fniam across the bottom and get 126 divided by 7, which would also give us 18. Now finally, for question 4, we're going to divide fractions, and to divide fractions we need to remember to stay switch flip. So what we're going to do here is we are going to keep the first fraction as it is, switch the divide to a times, and flip the second fraction. So that stay switch flip method gives us 4/5 times 10 over 7. And then we're in a position of times in fractions, which we're now familiar with, so we can do fniam across the top, fniam across the bottom. That gives us 40 over 35. That simplifies by dividing top and bottom by 5 to 8 over 7. 8 over 7 is top heavy. How many 7s go into 8? 1 whole, and we have a remainder of 1/7. So our answer is 1 whole and 1/7. Finally, for part B, we need to work out 2 3/7 divided by 1 1/2. Again, we're going to make them into top heavy fractions. 2 times 7 is 14, plus the 3 is 17. So it's 17 over 7, and 1 1/2, as we've already encountered, is 3 over 2. So we have 17/7 divided by 3/2. Again, we need to stay switch flip. So we're going to do 17 over 7 times by 2/3. Because we've flipped the second fraction, it's always the second fraction that we flip. And then we go fniam across the top, fniam across the bottom. 17 times 2 is 34. 7 times 3 is 21. That's top heavy. How many 21s go into 34? Well, once. So we've got 1 whole with a remainder of 13. So we write that as 1 whole and 13 over 21. So I hope that's been useful on multiplying, adding, dividing and subtracting fractions. Hasta la pizza, arrivederci, so long, goodbye, au revoir, ciao for now, we'll see you next time.